This is the FM Gold channel of All India Radio. In the program News Analysis, now we bring you a discussion on International Court of Arbitration upholds India's right to construct Kishanganga Dam in J&K. The participants are Shashank, former Foreign Secretary, and Simran Sodhi, Foreign Affairs Editor, The Statesman.
The International Court of Arbitration in Hague has decided in India's favour about the Kishanganga hydroelectric power project. India has been given the go-ahead by the court, and the decision seems to have gone in India's favour where it was taken by Pakistan over objections over water sharing. How do you interpret this move in terms of water sharing between India and Pakistan? And do you see this as another affirmation of the fact that India has always been fair as far as water sharing is concerned with its neighbour Pakistan?
India has been more than fair because it is only using the run-of-the-river projects for using the western rivers and bringing them over to the eastern rivers so that it will be easier for them to have proper dams so that the electricity and water which will be diverted from these dams will be available constantly within India, particularly in Jammu and Kashmir region. Where Pakistan's point has been that every instance they want to go to an international process so that it is not left only to a bilateral understanding, but it is taken care of at an international setting. And secondly, perhaps at the back of their mind, they also have the feeling that the Jammu and Kashmir people should remain dissatisfied with whatever is being done by the Indian government. Otherwise, if they feel that the Indian government and the J&K government is doing enough for them, then perhaps that element of dissatisfaction will go away if they are getting enough water, enough power. Because it is unfortunate that we have so many rivers shared between India and Pakistan under the Indus basin, and still not all the water is being used either by India or by Pakistan. A lot of it is going into the seas.
Do you feel that the reason the Kishanganga project has got more hyped or has been taken to the international court by Pakistan has specifically got to do with the point that it's located in Kashmir, it's located in a place where Pakistan again sees a bone of contention with India? So is the location making it another reason why Pakistan is...
Yes, because Pakistan gets the feeling that there is an element of mistrust. So if they feel that obviously something is behind whatever India is doing, so it's much better to go for an international arbitration and then to get the whole thing monitored by the international panel of experts. Now what India has been saying, that it is taking care of the interests of the people of Jammu and Kashmir within the limits prescribed by the Indus Waters Treaty. India has never taken an official stand, even though there are a lot of pressures on the Indian government from various scholars and strategic experts, etc., that India should request for a reformulation of the Indus Waters Treaty, but the government of India has never done it. And it has always tried to be within the confines of the treaty. And even though they have had to limit the height of the dams, or they have to go mainly for the run-of-the-river dams for the western rivers.
The Indus Waters Treaty, which was signed in 1960 by Jawaharlal Nehru and Ayub Khan, it's also hailed as one of the more successful water treaties in the world, in the sense that despite India and Pakistan going to war 3 times, India has not really violated or stopped the waters towards Pakistan. Should this not be interpreted as a goodwill gesture by India rather than having this element of mistrust, as you rightly put it?
Well, if you recall the statements made by Jawaharlal Nehru after the signing of the Indus Waters Treaty, he had tried to satisfy the Indian side, the Indian public, that once and for all, now there would be no disagreement between India and Pakistan. We would live like good neighbors, good friends. So that was the idea, that Nehru always thought that if we could somehow or the other be a more generous partner with Pakistan, then Pakistan would have forgot about all the mistrust and the dissatisfaction which they had with India on Kashmir, and they would live like good neighbors. But this has not happened. Actually, as soon as the 1962 war between India and China took place, Pakistan took the opportunity to befriend China. And since then it has become a very, very close friend and trusted ally of China, to the extent that while they take money from Saudi Arabia, money from America, arms from America, but their most reliable friend is China. So I think these are the kind of issues which we have to keep in mind, that Pakistan, though a very large country in terms of population, still feels that India is much larger and they have to mistrust India on these grounds. We are trying very hard that bilaterally we try to improve relations with them, and we have made more than a generous agreement under the Indus Waters Treaty, because if you find always between upper riparian and lower riparian, there are difficulties. You look at China, Chinese lower riparian states, whether it's India, Bangladesh on one side, or with Mekong, there are the Southeast Asian countries. They are always, the lower riparian always feel that the upper riparian is having an upper hand and is not releasing all the water that is required, or is going in for projects which may not be good for them. India has been on the other hand, very generous, water which they could have got otherwise, but they agreed that Pakistan could have complete right to the western rivers, except for the run-of-the-river plants which they could set up for the Jammu and Kashmir region. And eastern rivers which we are supposed to use, we are also not able to fully utilize those waters. They are also going down Pakistan's end into the sea.
So would you say that when the Kishanganga project is raised and Pakistan takes it to the international court because it says India is violating the Indus Waters Treaty, maybe the way to look at it is this is not so much about the hydroelectric power project as about the general relation between India and Pakistan, where Pakistan has not let off too many opportunities to internationalize a bilateral issue?
I would think that that is perhaps the basic point. But at the same time, in terms of the Indus Waters Treaty, we have to have regular consultations between India and Pakistan among their water commissioners. And also if they want to go to the International Court of Arbitration that is provided for in the Indus Waters Treaty, India has been going along with them, while telling them all the time that it is only wasting time, wasting efforts, and delaying the projects on the Indian side.
Pakistan also alleges that this dam will decrease the flow of water for Pakistan's Neelam Jhelum hydroelectric power project. How much credit do you give to this allegation that Pakistan's been making?
No, they have been able to make out a case for this. So the Commission has agreed, the Court of Arbitration has agreed that they must get some water, which is whatever it is, 9 million cusecs. So they have agreed for them. But their original demand was for 100 million. That means that they had arbitrarily hyped up their demands, and they had expected that the International Court of Arbitration would agree to it. Only problem would come perhaps in the lean seasons. When the water quantity would come down, then Pakistan might try to see that, well, it gets its right of water, whether India suffers or not.
We have India expressing satisfaction at the outcome in The Hague. We also have surprisingly Pakistan saying that this is a victory for them and they have been respected in their rights of water. How do you interpret Pakistan's acceptance of this verdict?
Well, when there is enough water in the river, then of course this problem does not arise. Both sides can have enough water. It's only during the lean periods when the water quantity will come down, then Pakistan feels that their rights have been respected and they are satisfied with that kind of a quantity of water going down to them. Secondly, they are also satisfied that the decision has been taken in an international setting. So if there is a difficulty that they have, whether real difficulty or perceived difficulty, they can always go back to the International Court of Arbitration to complain against India and get another international supervision on this process.
A lot of writing being done recently on what is being called as the water wars. Some analysts have gone so far as to say that the next wars will be over the possession of water. Do you think that India and Pakistan have a genuine water sharing problem, or is this just something which gets hyped up in the media and in international forums because of Pakistan's insistence? And this is not really as such an issue between the two nations?
The water problem is there all over the world because there is going to be a shortage of water. Even in India, it is expected that in the next 30-40 years, per capita availability of water will come down. It will become one of the least amount of satisfaction for the Indian public. Therefore, in future, as we can see the graph, there is going to be a difficulty about availability of water, especially potable water, because the water quality is going down so badly. And all these chemicals and other insecticides, etc., which are being used in the agricultural fields, they are also flowing down into the rivers. But as far as the Indus water system is concerned, I think the greater problem is that wherever you have tried to build up the canal systems, the canal water has gone into the fields, and then we find that the salts, etc., have leached out onto the top surface, and those soils have become incapable of further production of agricultural produce. So therefore, this is the other problem, that the water which is available is going through areas which become more or less sterile. So you have to then dig more canals, and you have to have fresh areas or find out other methods whereby this water leaching process can be taken care of. So whether we will continue to have this water availability from the hills in case there is a warming up of the climate, then of course perhaps we will not have that much of melting of the snow.
If I was to broaden the issue and take, broadly speaking, the India-Pakistan bilateral relationship in the backdrop of the Kishanganga hydroelectric power project, what we've also seen, finally, the DGMOs are likely to meet between India and Pakistan. And we've seen the relationship go through a lot of hiccups post the Mumbai attacks in 2008. So do you feel that these are irritants in a bilateral relationship? You have Siachen, you have Sir Creek, the Bombay attacks, terrorism, and then Pakistan is like coming out with another issue to the list, and that is now the water sharing issue. Do you think that this legitimately adds on to another issue that bilaterally has to be resolved?
No, the real problem is that in Pakistan, they are trying to work out a democratic system which will be controlling all the levers within the state. In the past, all powers were with the military or with the military leadership. In between, there have been very weak kind of civilian governments on the surface, but behind the scene, we found that the army leadership was still controlling the policies with regard to immediate neighbors like India and Afghanistan. Presently, we find that yes, Nawaz Sharif is trying to increase his authority by finding a suitable army chief of his liking. But this has happened in the past so many times that the civilian leaders have tried to find an army chief of their liking, and ultimately they find that the corps commanders work together. They are not really totally devoted only to the civilian leadership. So these issues are there. Second types of issues which have arisen in Pakistan are the various terrorist groups which have been encouraged by the government, civilian and military from time to time. And we find that when the state becomes weak, then these groups, these non-state actors, they provide all the support at the time of any human misery, whether it is the landslides, whether it is the earthquakes, any of these problems, we find the flooding, etc. So that these are the organizations, Lashkar-e-Taiba, whether it is Jamaat-ud-Dawa or any of these people, they are the ones who immediately mobilize effort. So what happens is that vis-a-vis the Pakistan state, these non-state actors become more powerful. Then they have had their links with the political parties, like Shahbaz Sharif, who is the brother of Nawaz Sharif. He is a very close friend of the Lashkar-e-Taiba leaders. Similarly, in the ISI, we find that there are many people who, behind the scene, they have been working very closely with the various factions, whether it is the Haqqani faction on the Afghanistan side or whether it is these people, Lashkar-e-Taiba, on this side.
I was also reading some articles in the Pakistani media where they said they are alleging that, India is going to store water to Pakistan and we will all die or crops will fall down. So there also seems to be a big hype factor behind every small thing that India does. Now with the decision by the International Court, do you feel that this will put at least the Kishanganga project at peace, because this is not India and Pakistan, but this is the International Court now saying that India can go ahead and whatever is happening is correct for both nations? Do you see the dispute ending?
This is a good beginning because we find that Pakistan's state is divided. It's really a federation of separate states. Each province asking for protection of its own rights. So the lower riparian within Pakistan are constantly saying that their own upper riparian partners, they're not giving them enough water. Upper riparian or other people who have the first access to natural resources, they say that they are not being allowed to develop. Everything is going down to Punjab or to southern Punjab, or let's say so both Balochistan and Pakhtunkhwa. They are both worried on this score that they are not allowed to develop, and all kinds of insurgencies, etc., which are there, they are used as an excuse not to have any economic development in these parts, and so that everything, all the natural resources, all the water resources can be used only by Punjab. So that has been the problem, and also there is a diversion of attention of their own people towards India, so that dissatisfaction is not against the central government in Pakistan, but against a neighboring country. Hopefully with this resolution of the Kishanganga project, we will not have any more new projects coming up which will be used to raise a similar hype against India.
And with this, we bring the discussion to an end. Thank you.
You are listening to a discussion on International Court of Arbitration upholds India's right to construct Kishanganga Dam in J&K. The participants were Shashank, former Foreign Secretary, and Simran Sodhi, Foreign Affairs Editor, The Statesman. It came to you in the program News Analysis, produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.nic.in. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.